Remembering our definition of information structure, we've said that there's information types, and those information types have items. The items are the actual content of the type, and the type is the template or the rules that govern the information. In addition to those information types and information items, which we've spent a lot of time on so far, there's access structures. And now it's time to get into access structures, which will really occupy us for the remainder of this course. We'll do some more stuff on information types, but access structures is now really the main event. So let's start with that concept of access. What does it mean to access, and why did I choose the term access to describe this entire realm of structure? The reason I chose it, as opposed to, for example, organization, is that I think access stresses the purpose of why we would organize information. We organize information for access. And that access is for really two different kinds of people. It's the end user, the one who's trying to use a system that you've built in order to find some information. And there's the architect or the manager of the system. And those two people have very different purposes. And when we create access structures, those are the structures that allow us to access information. The us in allowing us to access information is both the end user and the manager. And it should be possible to create one set of structures that serve both purposes. And the reason for that is because those structures, once defined, can be rendered, can be used, can be engaged for any purpose that you have in mind. So in one way they can build navigation on a website. In another way, for example, they might create a list of topics that need to be edited. That's a typical manager function. So I want to give you an example of where the confusion between those two types of access has led to problems in the past. And that's at the beginning of the web era, when many organizations first went online. And when they first went online, they said, well, we have a lot of information here. How should we organize it? And the method they chose to organize it was the method that was most natural to them. And if you think back and you try to remember some of those early websites, you'll remember particularly that when you would go to a website, you would see organizational information organized by organizational unit. Now, why was that? The reason for that was when people gathered the information to create the website, they got the information from all their different organizational units. They tried to get it organized so that they could access it, so that they could work with it, so that they could manage it. And what was the most logical way for them to do that? Obviously, the most logical way for them to do that was by organizational unit. That's the way they thought about the information. That's the way that was most useful for them to access the information. They would get a piece of information from some group under a group under a group, and they would put it in a folder for that group, under a folder for the overlying group, under a folder for the overlying group. And so they had it well organized. They were easily able to accommodate all the different groups of information because they had an access structure. In fact, they had a hierarchy of organizational units, and every piece of information they got fit into that hierarchy. Then it came time to produce their big website, and they said, well, there's nothing to think about. We've already got our information organized. Look how well organized it is. Everybody in their group agreed it was very well organized. And so the natural way to present a website, the natural way to create the interface to all that information, the natural way to publish all that information was to put it on a website that had that same hierarchical by organizational unit structure. And of course that failed dismally. Nobody from outside the organization thinks of the organizational information that way. Hello, this is Charlie. He's come to visit us, and you may see another one just like him whose name is Peter. So the organizational information on the website was completely inaccessible to the users of the website. And the reason was because they don't access the information that way. They don't think about it as organized by organizational units. How do they think about it? And what's the way that we've come to represent information by and large on an externally facing website for an organization? The two ways that we've come to do that, one is by task. When a user comes to the website, they want to get information about the thing that I'm trying to do. And so they'll use the website in order to get that kind of information. In addition, they may come and say, I am, well, let's say this is a government website. I am a voter, so I want information for voters. Or I am a landowner, I want information for landowners. Or I am a contractor, I want information for contractors. And so they'll come and look for information by who they are and what kinds of information apply to them. Or they'll come and look by task. I want to get a license for my pet. They'll come and look for information by task, and that's completely different than looking for information by the organizational unit that created it. So I want to start out with this idea of access, and access is getting to information. Getting to information by whom? By two very distinct and different kinds of people. By the end user, who's looking to get to a particular piece of information that suits their information need. They have some need for an item of information, and your access structures are going to allow them to get to it. Then there's the manager, who has needs to gather, tag, maintain, archive, produce, segment, look at the status of. Those are all the jobs that a manager might do, and they have very different needs for access. And our hope is that we can create a simple set of access structures that serve both needs.